Good evening, and welcome to blackdoctor.org Facebook Live on your Tuesday night talk show, which is Black Doctor Speak. This is a program designed for you to ask the questions. We talk about subjects that are going to be relevant to you and your family, and you can come on and ask the questions that you need to stay healthy, because we believe that knowledge is key and knowledge is power to be able to protect your greatest asset, which is your health. I am Ellis Dean, a Senior Project Manager with blackdoctor.org. And of course, I'm always joined by the incomparable Dr. Michael Lenore. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Lenore?
Well, we were talking earlier about the fact that we wanted to give doctors experience about the coronavirus injections and what they went through. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm really upset. I would use another word, but I don't know how much we can do on blackdoctor.org. But the first shot that I got, I went to the register through the little processes at the hospital. But this is a hospital I've been going to for 30 years with babies, probably, 3,000 or 4,000 babies through there. And I got into the room and they didn't have my name there. I was not there. So I kind of acted black, to the point where they felt they had to do something. So they kind of registered me and I got that first shot. All right, so today was supposed to be my second shot. So I go down there at like 8 o'clock, because at the first appointment, and she said, your name is not on the list. So I said, of course I was, it was early morning, gotten up early, trying to be on time to, kind of raise the stereotype. And she said, well, you're not here. I said, well, look, you're going to have to give me somebody's shot. She said, well, we can't give it to you because we have just enough vaccine for the people who are on the list. And so I wasn't able to get the shot. So then she said, well, maybe you can come tomorrow at 2:15. So, well, I've got patients at 2:15. So my appointment is at 7 o'clock on Friday morning. Now, if I'm having that experience as a physician who goes to that hospital every single day, I'm sure that other people have similar experiences. Those people who want the shot, first responders, certainly you want your older relatives who are in nursing homes. Nobody knows right now how to get a shot. I've had so many calls this week, Ellis, from friends of mine who think usually I have a little juice somewhere. I can do a little stuff, but not around this injection. You either got to be in the pipeline or they're not going to give it to you. Now, I did just hear that President Biden is going to order something like 300 million doses of the vaccine, so that in the next couple of weeks, that everybody will have them. At least they will know for a 3-week period how much vaccine they have. It's just so disappointing that we have suffered in so many ways from the lack of government involvement in this whole process. And to superimpose on that about the vaccine, obviously, I just saw the Kaiser Family Foundation, only 30% of African Americans are getting the shot, which is equal. They're right, and no question about it. But I think that in the long run, it's going to so affect quality of life that getting on an airplane, going to a restaurant, getting into government facilities, all of those are going to be based on whether or not you've been vaccinated. I'm afraid that at somewhere in this country, that's going to come to that people who want to go to venues of different types, even some churches, will have to show that they've been vaccinated. So I think that's a big problem. Not to mention the fact that these variants, now I don't think many people may not know what variants actually mean. Right. It means the viruses have learned that we got vaccines and that we're social distancing and that we're wearing masks. So those viruses that were able to elude all of that have started to be dominant in the strain of the viruses that we're getting. So that means that they're mutating. And you've seen these movies, Lawrence Fishburne and these other movies, about how the viruses understand and know how to protect themselves. And so there are 3 basic new viruses. There's one in England, which seems to be clearly responsive to the vaccines that we have. There's another one in Brazil and a third in South Africa. Both of those seem to be less less sensitive to the vaccines. And so I fully expect that over the next year or so, we're going to see some viruses that are even more lethal, and I think that that's going to be a problem. The Moderna, I saw the Moderna CEO this morning. You want to say something?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say that let's expand this conversation because our guest is here. We've got Dr. Lisa Fitzpatrick of Grapevine Health with us, and she's an infectious disease specialist, and so she can come on and we can kind of have you two, and I'll just sit back and listen because you two are the experts on this. So, Dr. Fitzpatrick, welcome.
Now, I heard Grapevine. Is that in Houston?
Hi, Dr. Lenore.
Are you in Houston or?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Oh, Washington. Well, I thought I heard Grapevine. Well, thank God you showed up because we were just about to run out.
Right.
We were just about to run out of things to talk about. But,
this is grapevine, as in I heard it through the grapevine.
Oh, wow, I got it. Marvin Gaye type or Gladys Knight type?
Take your pick.
Oh.
All right, I'm Marvin Gaye. I'm going to go with Marvin Gaye.
Okay. I'm a Gladys person, so we're certainly glad to have you on our program, and thank you for taking the time. I want to kind of finish the thought on these variants on which you're kind of an expert. That these viruses, I think, are very, very resilient. They know how to protect themselves, and so consequently, I think at some point, but I did hear this morning, the president of Moderna said that either they're going to develop a booster or they're going to try to develop a vaccine, which is more comprehensive. But obviously, let me turn it over to you a little bit to talk about the things that you're most interested in about this pandemic.
Well, there's so much to talk about, but I can just pick up on what you're talking about. I get a lot of questions about this in the community, about these mutations. And the way I explain mutations to people is that we expect viruses to mutate because the nature of viruses is that in order to continue on, they have to find a host and then copy themselves over and over and over again. And when they copy themselves, they make mistakes. So it's like you taking a piece of paper, a document, copying it. And if you hold the copy up next to the original, you will see you can tell which one is the original because it's not perfect. And so viruses are making mistakes, and that's all mutations are. But the challenge with these mutations, even though we don't have concrete data to show or tell us whether or not these mutations are creating more severe sickness. So are people getting sicker, hospitalized more? Are they dying more? So far, they don't seem to be. However, I understand some of these mutations have made the vaccines a little less effective, but the vaccines still work. And because the vaccines work so well, even though they may take a bit of a hit because of these mutations, the vaccines will still work for even these with the mutations. So we just have to wait and see what happens. But I keep reminding people that even without a vaccine, we know how to stop the transmission, the spread of coronavirus, because it's going to be a while before we can vaccinate our way, if ever, out of this pandemic. So there are lots of things we can talk about tonight. So tell me, are we getting questions or what's on your mind, Ellis and Dr. Lenore?
Well, I want to sound kind of philosophical. Speak to us a little bit about the issues around concerns of African Americans on these vaccines. What are you hearing out there in the street? Let me just say that here in the Bay Area, what I'm hearing from most African Americans is not that we're not going to take the vaccine, but we're just going to wait a little while, see what happens with other people, see if your skin falls off or your eyeball turns.
Yeah.
I mean, so there are all kinds of, and I mean, that sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I've heard some really wild concerns about what this vaccine is going to do. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear the same thing. And I think because people are getting their information, unfortunately, from social media. Where did everybody go? I like looking at people.
Okay, all right. I
I'm
was
trying to
like,
talk to
I
myself.
try to give you a solo shot. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to be mainstream.
Self-production quality. I'm sorry. Let's go. People on the
Yeah,
street.
no, because it feels more like a conversation. So I understand. So yes, I'm very much hearing that. I want to wait, but I'm reminding people that if you think about when the first person got this vaccine, it was actually March 2020. So that was already almost a year ago. We have been watching to see what the side effects are. And so I think because people aren't thinking about that, a lot of people, 76,000 people in the United States volunteered to be in these clinical trials, half of whom got the vaccine already. So all those people saying, I don't want to go first and I'm going to wait a year. Well, guess what? You didn't go first because those of us who volunteered to be in the trials went first. And we have almost a year's worth of information about the side effect profile. So it's a little discouraging to me that so many people are relying on social media to get their information because social media highlights all the negative things, like people who a woman passed out or someone who had, Bell's palsy. So one side of the person's face was temporarily paralyzed. Those things are very rare, but those are the things that get traction in the media. And it's because it's such a sensational thing. That's what folks want to talk about. But unfortunately, there's so much misinformation. It's hard for us to stay ahead of it. So I'm glad you have programs like this so we can talk to people and help them understand what's real and what's not.
Yeah, only 23% of the sites on health on social media are vetted sites, trusted sites. Now, and in fact, the challenge is this: is I posted a picture of myself and my daughters and grandchildren, we frolicking around. I may get 500 hits. I mean, really, every day I look at how many more hits did I get from my family. We do things and so that I get those hits. If I post a piece, no matter how it's designed, on some scientific aspects of this whole, maybe 14, 15 people. I mean, the most response we get is through blackdoctor.org, and we're grateful for that venue. So social media, here's the way I feel, Dr. Fitzpatrick. If I go into Facebook with a message, on the coronavirus, I feel like I'm interrupting something. I'm interrupting your father's birthday or the fact that you got promoted. I feel like I'm intruding. And so we have to find other venues, I think, along with social media. And like I say, blackdoctor.org is one place where we can kind of come to it on our own, as they say in the church, come to it in our own way. But if I try to use social media like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, unless I'm dancing. In fact, I've often said even before this, that if Black doctors want to have a message about hypertension to the population, we need to rob the 7-Eleven store, and on the way to jail, we can talk about hypertension, diabetes, because that's where we will get some responses. So I do think that we're challenged trying to combat the social media on the other side.
I cannot agree with you more. So my company, Grapevine Health, is focused on creating engaging, trusted content for underserved and minority communities like Black communities. So I have come to the painful realization that people want to be entertained. So how do we create content for us? That means including the community in the conversation. Or I even have a little dancing video on my YouTube page. I went out on the street and I had a sign that said, "Don't make me dance alone." And just turned on some music and let people watch to see if people would come up and dance. And so I did that just to see if I could get more traction. And you're absolutely right. But I think most people are just looking for an escape. They don't want to think about, things that are heavy or things that are academic. And so, unfortunately, we have to figure out how to fit in with all the noise and figure out how to stand out. So I love your analogy. In fact, I was explaining to someone how the vaccines work, because I had the vaccine and my side effects included feeling like there was some rough and tumble going on inside my body. And so in that moment, I thought, well, maybe we should make a video about a bouncer outside of a nightclub. And so you show the picture to the bouncer and say, don't let these people come in. And then have a video like that explaining to people, well, this is what vaccines are doing. So I can't agree with you more. It's unfortunate, but that's the way of the world now.
And I think we have one of your videos. Are we ready to show that?
We do. We'll put that up. I just
one
want
of my Dr. Lisa on the Street videos.
This is the one where you do your reveal.
Yes, in the Moderna trial. Yes,
I got your reveal video here. But I do want to address one thing, and because there's a lot of comments coming in, and there are mixed comments, and I just want to say one thing. What you read about, and we've been talking about it, what you read about on social media is the extreme, right? Because those extremes get clicks. And so when you read about so I read about 4 people passing out and one person potentially getting Bell's palsy. Do you know millions of people to this point have gotten the vaccine? You don't hear about all the people like Dr. Fitzpatrick that has gotten the vaccine, both doses, has had any problems. Those stories don't get clicks. What gets clicks are the extremes. So if you have 1 million people get a vaccine and 2 people have some sort of effect from it, we're going to hear about those 2. And then what our mind does is it tries to extrapolate that out to that full 1 million that had an adverse reaction. No, it's just 2, which is less than 1% of the people that are having some sort of reaction from it. And they are monitoring those people if they have a reaction. So what you're seeing on social media is just a very, very, very microscopic percentage of what's happening. So let's not get caught up in the sensationalism of social media. So,
you know why that happens? It happens because the things that concern us most are the things that we fear, the things that are scary. And so that's the worst possible outcome.
Right.
And that's what we want to focus on. Well, I don't want to be the person, that happens to. But guess what? So many Black people are being hospitalized with COVID and dying of COVID-19. Getting the vaccine and having a few side effects for several hours, to me, pales in comparison to being hospitalized if I get COVID-19. So that's something to consider as well.
I do respect people who choose not to get the vaccine. I mean, that's your choice. I just beg you that make it an informed choice. As an allergist, I can tell you that there are a lot of misconceptions about allergy to the vaccine. First of all, if you've never seen a vaccine before, then you can't make an allergy response. So that's the first thing. Second thing, some people faint the minute you pull a needle out with just about anything. And I think the final piece of that is that if you have allergy to peanut or allergy to penicillin or allergy to a unique allergen, that's so far from the vaccine. And then as allergists, we can desensitize or hypersensitize people who are allergic in about 6 hours. And so consequently, a 6-hour desensitization program, as opposed to, just a lifetime of being concerned everywhere you go, looking over your shoulder, like somebody's waiting for you with a coronavirus infection, I think fails by comparison. But I do respect people who decide not to get the vaccine, and we have to have programs for them as well.
But I hope that the number of people who choose not to get the vaccine is so small that it actually doesn't really matter, because we can get to herd immunity without 100%. So herd immunity, this notion that if enough people in the population have been exposed to coronavirus, either have had the infection or get the vaccination, then the virus will eventually die out because it doesn't have enough people to infect. So, the Kaiser study I keep quoting, that came out in December, showed that in the Black community, about 12% absolutely would not get the vaccine. And I actually think that's positive, because it means the other 88%, we can provide information, we can answer questions, we can help people get access to the vaccine. So
we had similar results on blackdoctor.org. We did a survey of our population, and we found that earlier this year we had results as high as 91% people said no. But As our most recent survey said, it was down to about 27% said no, and you had about 63 to 64% of people, if my math is right, seven that said either yes or they wanted more information. And so that was in just a few months, that was a kind of a seismic shift in terms of how, people's views of the vaccine. So let's get to video. And then when we come back, we've got some questions about mask wearing, about what are vaccines really trying to do? Are they protecting us, or are they just, lowering the results of if we do get infected? So we kind of really need to explain what the purpose of being vaccinated is. And so there's some really good questions. There's a lot of chatter going on in the chat room, so I want to get to those questions. But first, let's get to Dr. Fitzpatrick's video reveal.
Okay.
Hi, it's Dr. Lisa. Remember, I am chronicling my vaccine trial journey. I started this journey in September when I got my first shot, and I got my second shot a month later, and I told you about my side effects. So today is the big reveal. I'm going to find out which arm I was in. Did I get the placebo or did I get the vaccine? So I'm Caroline. I'm one of the physician assistants at George Washington University. All right, let's do this. All right. In December, the FDA issued emergency use authorization for the Moderna vaccine. They found that in the phase 3 trial, it was 94% effective in preventing severe COVID or symptomatic COVID. So at this visit, what will happen is if you choose to, you will be unblinded. I choose to. Okay. So you will know whether you got placebo or you got the vaccine. And then if you end up getting placebo, you can either choose to get the vaccine today or you cannot choose to get the vaccine today. Okay. Alternative treatment would be, you remain blinded in the study, but you said you want to be unblinded, or you could just discontinue your participation in the study at this time. So if you did end up getting placebo and you choose to get the vaccine today, there will be some additional study visits. So if you end up getting the vaccine today, you'll have to come back in a month for the second dose. We will call you at day 8, do a safety call to make sure that to check on your symptoms, any side effects you may have. And then you'll come back in 2 months for a third visit so we can check your antibodies. Some of the side effects that we can anticipate are fever, pain at the injection site, redness or hardness of the skin at the injection site, headache, muscle aches or pain, joint aches or pain, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, chills, underarm gland swelling on the side of the study vaccination. Okay. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. We have seen in a few individuals across the United States severe allergic reactions. And typically we are seeing that in individuals who have had a severe allergic reaction to a vaccine or just a severe allergic reaction in general. Any questions about that?
What's considered severe? What have you seen?
So severe is, we typically see it within the first 30 minutes of vaccination. Difficulty breathing, throat closing.
So like an allergic reaction.
Yes, an allergic reaction. So we would typically see that within 30 minutes. And if you end up getting the vaccine today, we're still going to monitor you for 30 minutes to make sure that you don't have a severe allergic reaction.
Okay. And if I've already had the vaccine?
You're just going to continue your study visits as planned.
Okay, and that's once a month, I think.
Once a month we'll call you, and then you should have an in-person visit within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Mm-hmm. If you get the vaccine, can you still transmit coronavirus?
So we know that it prevents symptomatic COVID. We don't yet know if it prevents asymptomatic COVID.
Even if the vaccine is preventing me from getting coronavirus infection, if I come in contact with it, I could still spread it to someone else.
We saw that it was 94% effective in preventing, symptomatic COVID or severe COVID. So it's not 100% effective. So we still advise you to continue practicing.
But 94, that's pretty good.
It's very good. Very good. If you have any questions about the research aspect, this is our institutional review board. You can contact them. That you wish to continue participation in the study and know your study treatment assignment. So if you agree to that, yes.
That means I get to
you will check an initial.
And then this says if you find out that you got placebo, you wish to receive the vaccine.
Yes. Okay.
These you won't check. This just says if you receive placebo, you do not want to receive the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
This says you want to continue, but you do not want to be unblinded. And then this one says you don't want to continue at all.
Does anybody ever want to continue and not be unblinded?
No. Nobody has done that yet.
Yeah.
And then you will print, sign, and date. Thank you. And then I will sign, and then we will get you a copy of the signed version. So today what will happen is we'll go and blind you. We'll tell you what you got. Regardless of what you got, we will collect 2 tubes of blood and a nasopharyngeal swab.
Oh,
I know.
I have to get a COVID test.
So we still want to follow everybody regardless of what they got in the study. Nick is going to do your nasopharyngeal swab, so I will get out of here while he does that.
The COVID test is not fun.
I agree. It's not fun doing them either. It's definitely.
I don't have COVID. Can you just take my word for it?
No, because you can have it and not have any symptoms or anything.
Rachel, no.
Ready?
Wait.
Okay. You let me know when you're ready.
I'm such a baby about the COVID test. Okay. All right, come on.
All right, here we go. Okay, good to go.
It's time for the big reveal.
So you got 2 doses of the mRNA vaccine.
Right on.
Very exciting.
Yes. I got the vaccine.
That is for you.
All right, check it out. It's my COVID vaccine passport. But I think it's called a record card. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So what are you looking for?
With the blood draw?
Yes.
They're mainly testing for antibodies. So because, as we just found out, you got the mRNA twice already. One of the things we don't have enough data for right now is determining how long your immunity will last for.
Mm-hmm.
So this blood draw will help to figure at least part of that out. At this stage, you're however many months post your second dose. So if you still have antibodies and enough of an immune response, then it might be able to show that immunity lasts for a certain period of time. Even though you've gotten the vaccine and we know that it is 94% effective, it's still important that you do things like wear a mask and social distance and wash your hands because we don't know how long your immunity will last for. All right, it was nice seeing you.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. I just finished my clinic visit at GW. They unblinded me in the trial, and guess what? Here's my vaccine passport. I got the vaccine.
Good job. Good job, doctor.
Can I just say one thing before we start talking about the vaccine again? Shout out to all the left-handed people in the video. I saw that, so I'm sorry. I had a moment. Left-handed folks, raise up.
I didn't know you were a lefty. That's why I like you. That's definitely why.
I'm a lefty. So the main question, I think you answered it and you touched on it in the video, and I saw some of the people in the chat room asking that question. What is the purpose of the vaccine? Because a lot of times people think vaccines are to protect them from getting COVID. And is that true, or does the vaccine have another purpose? Yes, that's definitely the purpose of any vaccine, is to protect you from getting whatever the infection is. So a vaccine, no matter how it's made, the purpose of it is to show your body the germ, the virus or the bacteria, so that your body recognizes it. It puts an armor on. So that's what these antibodies are doing, and these other cells in your body that make up your immune system. The whole point of the immune system is to help protect you from infections, or what I like to call foreign invaders. So the vaccine is basically tricking your body into thinking you got the infection, because it's preparing you. It's like a dress rehearsal. So this is what you do if you see coronavirus, or if you see this germ, this is how you attack it.
So absolutely, the purpose of a vaccine is to prevent infections. Although I'm getting a lot of questions, there's confusion about whether or not the vaccine will stop transmission of coronavirus, because people are thinking, well, if I get the vaccine, then I can stop wearing my mask. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned this in another video, if not that one. I'm protected because I've gotten the vaccine. But let's say Dr. Lenore has COVID-19 in his airway.
Heaven forbid.
Just an example. But let's say we're standing next to each other at the bus stop and he sneezes and he doesn't have on a mask. Maybe I can inhale some of those germs that he's expressing through his sneeze, which means it could still be in my airway. I won't get sick. But if I'm not wearing a mask, I have the potential to transmit it or sneeze, and maybe it can get on someone else. The other thing about transmission is that because I won't get COVID, I'm probably less likely to transmit it to someone else, because when you become sick, there's a lot of coronavirus in your body or in your airway for you to spread it to other people. So if you come in contact with it, but you're protected and you don't get sick, you probably won't have as much coronavirus because it's not able to replicate, because your body is protecting you from having the infection set up in your body to make you sick. I know it's a little confusing, but the vaccine was not designed specifically to prevent transmission. It's to keep you from getting sick.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, as an immunologist, I can say to you that there are other elements in your immune system that will also help you fight the virus. But the misconception that this is a new vaccine is a little bit confusing, because we've been looking at coronaviruses for a very long time. And you describe it this way, that it's like the trunk of a tree, that if you look at various coronaviruses, the trunks may all be the same. The branches may be different. And even with the variants, the branches may be different. So if you make a vaccine that hits the trunk of one coronavirus, at least partially, then you're likely to get the other. So this is really not a new organism completely. It's a new variant of one organism. And so consequently, like you say, that they've been doing this for a year, 87,000 people. At the same time, they've been looking at coronaviruses for a very long time.
Yes, and also to take that a step further, one of the biggest reasons we've been able to produce a vaccine so quickly, there are a lot of reasons it happened, but I think the primary one is that the messenger RNA science is actually not new. This is the first time we have a vaccine approved using messenger RNA, but there are decades of research with people looking at messenger RNA as a mechanism to treat diseases. It's been tried in vaccines before. And the whole purpose of science, those people who are in the lab looking under the microscopes with their pipettes, they're doing experiments and they're learning and improving on the failures they've had. And so we are benefiting from all of those years of work with messenger RNA. And so I think people need to recognize this is a medical advancement, a scientific advancement. And we always ask for scientific advancements to cure people and to reduce disease and sickness. And here we are staring at a medical advancement, and people don't recognize it because of so many other factors that have made people distrustful of this process.
And I hope we get a chance to talk about it before we leave, but there's still other vaccines out there and opportunities for people to kind of get in the mix. But maybe some questions, Mr. Dean.
Yeah, there was a question from Candace, and she was just wondering, how long does the vaccine stay in your system? Which is a big question.
Did Candace watch the video? Nick was talking a little bit about that. The reason they take all that blood from those of us who are in the research studies is because they're trying to answer just that question. How long? So I got my first shot in September. And every time I go for those visits, they take blood from you. And they're looking for lots of things, but they're also looking to see how much protection the vaccine has given me, after a certain amount of time has passed. And even the people who got the vaccine last year, I understand even those people still have protection from the vaccine. So that's actually really good news. But it's hard. You can't say that this is true for every single person, because I think every person responds in their own way based on their own makeup. But there have been a few cases of people who've gotten coronavirus twice, which suggests it doesn't hang around forever. And that's not a surprise. Think about the flu vaccine. We have to get a new flu vaccine every year because it doesn't last, and the virus might be different.
So another thing, and I would ask everybody to go ahead and you can Google this. The Moderna CEO suggested that their vaccine could last up to several years, and so he went out on a limb and made that statement. But that statement,
bold.
It was bold. It was definitely bold when he made that statement, and I was cringing when I read it. My business major mind said, "Oh, don't do that, because you're gonna set an unrealistic expectation that you don't really know about it." So I would just definitely say, so for people, if you've had coronavirus and you haven't had the vaccine, yes, your body has developed some antibodies. If you survived coronavirus, yes, your body has developed some antibodies, but again, don't know how long they're going to stay in your system. So that part of it is still being monitored because this is so new, and we don't know how long this vaccine will last.
And that's another good question. People who've had the coronavirus, should they get vaccinated?
Yeah, I think so. The data suggests or show that there is some protection beyond what natural infection provides you. So remember, there are two ways to be protected from coronavirus. And actually, this is for any infection, really. You can either get the infection and get sick. So in this case, you get coronavirus infection and develop COVID-19. Some people do just fine. Some people have to be hospitalized. So your body, this is what the way you naturally show your body coronavirus. You actually get the infection. The second way is a vaccination. So we talked about that a little earlier. The vaccination is tricking your body into thinking it's had the infection. So then it mounts a response to protect you in case you encounter the real coronavirus. And so for people who've had COVID-19 in the past, the data suggests that even though they have some protection, some natural protection, the vaccination will provide even more protection. So, the folks who have recently had coronavirus, I don't think they should feel like they have to be in a rush to get it, at the head of the line. I think some of the CDC recommendations suggest you can wait 90 days or so, but you could probably get it sooner than that if you choose and if you're in a high risk category. But the only thing I would say is if you actively have COVID-19 right now, wait until your infection resolves before you seek the vaccine.
This afternoon, the administration said they're buying 300 million doses of the vaccine.
Oh, really? I heard too. Okay, it's still a lot though, but that's
300
that's
million,
risky too.
300 million doses, and that they expect very soon that people will have at least 3 weeks worth of vaccine in every state, so that states can plan and on the basis of that. And so there's going to be more federal involvement in both the purchase of the vaccine, the manufacturing of the vaccine. And here again, it's certainly safe to say, probably true, there's vaccine and there's vaccination. And so getting into people's arms, I think, will certainly be enhanced with at least some kind of an organized plan at the federal level to deal with the states and the distribution of the vaccine.
Well,
So,
go ahead, Alice.
There's a question from Alice. She's asking, why 2 shots and not just 1 shot?
Well, unfortunately, it's the way the developers created this vaccine. I'm not a basic scientist, so I wasn't at the table when they were having those discussions about why. But hopefully there's help on the way, because I know Johnson & Johnson has a vaccine that's will be looked at very soon, and it's actually one shot. So I don't know the exact answer to that, why 2 shots instead of 1, although the second shot really acts like a booster. And we're familiar with this because we have other vaccines that require boosters. The one that I've been reminding people about when they push back against vaccines is tetanus. You ever had to get a tetanus shot because the classic case is you stepped on a nail, a rusty nail, because it can cause a nasty reaction. And so the people have to get an injection that's like a vaccine. And then it only lasts a certain amount of time, so we have to get a booster. But I wanted to react to something you said, Dr. Lenora, about the new administration and the vaccines coming on board. First of all, just, what a relief it is to have some leadership around this process. Because people ask me, well, does it really matter, like, who the president was or what administration, was in? Like, this couldn't, we couldn't have foreseen this, and there's no way we could have, changed this situation because it's beyond our control. I disagree with that, because first of all, agencies like the CDC was created expressly for the purpose of handling something like a pandemic, or even at least in the United States. So leadership matters because you need a unified strategy and message around how to address these public health threats. And so we didn't have that. Each state was doing its own thing. The messages were all over the place. And I think just seeing the impact of streamlining that and having the nation speak with one language and develop one, a singular strategy around how to handle this, I think people will recognize how critical leadership is in a public health crisis.
A pandemic is a steep price to pay to get rid of one individual, but at this point, it might be even steeper.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say, going back to the question of the 2 shots, you're absolutely right. We had Dr. Fauci on twice, 3 times really, and he talked about that process, and he said that just the research showed that booster shot is what really solidified the protective effects, because there were some questions because there were limited amount of doses under the old regime, that there were some rumblings about them only giving 1 shot or trying to space it out further in terms of the days.
Oh yeah, no, that was a terrible idea
between the shots. And so he was like, no, what they found in the clinical trials, that this was the dosage and that way it should be dosed, those 2 particular, the Moderna and the Pfizer. And so that second one is what really activated the immune system to give it the protective effects. And so if you just got your 1 shot and you don't go back to get the second one, you don't have the full protective effects. And so that's really, it's just the way that the vaccine, those particular vaccines were developed.
Well, you get some protection from the first dose, right? There is some protection from the first dose. So it's like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, well, I was pretty upset that I didn't you didn't hear the story, but I've been going to this hospital for 30 years. And when I went to get my, for my appointment, they didn't have my name. And I went back today to get my second dose, and they didn't have my name. And they couldn't, it's not, usually there's a little juice that you have around the hospitals that you go to, but I'll be there at 7 a.m. on Friday to get my second dose.
Absolutely. So
what do you think happened there? What happened?
I think that in California, we're so focused on the administrative pieces of it that we've been very slow. In fact, which state has the most people vaccinated? West Virginia. because what that governor did was just give it there. He gave it to the pharmacies, he gave it to nursing homes, he gave it to everybody that would give out a vaccine. So they have used every dose of their vaccine over at least the last 6 weeks. In California, you got 8, all the counties have different programs, they have different sense of who should get the vaccine. They tell you one thing, then they run out of vaccine. I think we are really caught in an administrative, a catch-22 situation. I think it's more administrative than it is structural. I think we got many more people who want the vaccine here than can get a shot.
Including Black people.
Well,
no, we can't buy into this narrative that I think is being perpetuated by the media that Black people don't want the vaccine. I think we really have to change that narrative and start talking about vaccine acceptance. Sure, there are people who will not get it, but I think far and away with the right information and helping people understand the process and having trusted messengers talk about this, people will accept the vaccine.
And I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think most Black people I've talked to are not talking about not getting the vaccine. They're talking about not being the first. And you've already said there's no way you can.
You're not first. We were first. If someone still thinks they're first, tell them to call me.
There's a question about the cost of the vaccine, and I think we touched on this briefly with one of our Making It Plain series. There should be, and so if they try to make you pay when you go get the vaccine, you're at the wrong spot and you're not getting a real vaccine. So,
well, but I think they should report that spot as well, because no one should be charged for this vaccine. So they need to make sure.
It is. And so what's happening is they've already created a code. So if you do have insurance, they've created a code that your medical office will put in, and then they will get reimbursed. You should not come out of pocket for this vaccine. I know CVS and Walgreens have talked about setting up vaccination spots. They're moving it out. And I think that point you're speaking to, Dr. Fitzpatrick, about having a unified voice, now that we have it, hopefully we can kind of get more alignment on the distribution, particularly with the Black community. You're absolutely right, Dr. Lenore. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They got some old data and they're running with it as a way to not vaccinate Black people. And so if you want to get vaccinated, and I'm speaking to the people that want to get vaccinated, if you don't want to get vaccinated, it's up to you. Just keep your mask on, stay away from me. But if you do get vaccinated, it should be available to you, and it should be available to you in your community. You should not have to drive all over town, all over creation, and fight Peter, Paul, and Mary to get your vaccine.
But that's a good point you're making, because I think, as we think about deploying this vaccine to the people who need it, we need to be partnering with our community organizations, the social service organizations who've already built trust in the community, and help them and support them to help us get the vaccines to the people who need it and want it. Because, a lot of this is about trust. And if those social service organizations, they deliver food, they provide job training, they provide benefits of all kinds, they are in the community on the ground connecting with people. So if they're trusted messengers, we need to be partnering with them, not only as messengers to give them the information. I do lots of webinars for some of these organizations to let them ask questions so that they're prepared when they go in the community, but help them help us. Well, so we can't forget them.
We've had instances already in California where hospitals are giving their favorite people vaccines, even they were not in the pipeline. And whenever, see, I always thought that, when we were in the summer, when we were hot, and people were worried about our health equity and about our unconscious racism and worried about getting us getting arrested, unnecessarily. But they forgot that that's already gone. They probably couldn't even.
Are you surprised?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I was not surprised that Black people were the most at risk from the beginning. I was surprised they were surprised. But I think what we're going to find out, though, is that you're going to have to fight for your position, just like we do everything else. I thought there would be a special program for African Americans since we were most at risk. but I haven't seen anything like that anywhere in California. I don't know whether the East Coast is somewhat different.
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are. And the example you gave of about West Virginia, I mean, we need to be highlighting that and explaining why that's happening. I mean, I think there's a scale issue because West Virginia is a small state, but at the same time, there has to be leadership that incited, that success, right? They demanded that this was going to be the process. So we need that in every state. We need that across the country. But I think help is on the way with this new administration. So let's see how it plays out.
There's a question from Maya, and she's asking, does that mean vaccinated people don't have to wear masks?
Did you just join us, Maya? Yes, they have to wear a mask because and as my friend Lori says, the vaccination getting vaccinated doesn't mean that you immediately now have a magic shield that causes coronavirus to bounce off of you. And that's very true. You can still inhale coronavirus. You might still pick it up on an object. We're asking people to remember to wash their hands, but people are getting tired of a lot of these messages. You're hearing about it over and over and over again, and we just want things to be normal again. But coronavirus is still being transmitted in the same ways. People are coughing and sneezing and touching things. And so that's why we still have to wear a mask, because as the Black Coalition Against COVID says, this ain't over.
Can you speak to what life will be like, Dr. Fitzpatrick, for those people who don't get vaccinated as they move forward into a more normal economy? What would be some of the things they have to be concerned about?
Well, first of all, I would like to hope, I'm going to hope that even if some people don't get vaccinated, enough of us will, that they will all be okay.
Okay.
Because this really is a community effort. We have to look out for each other. Getting vaccinated, it helps you, absolutely, but it also helps other people in the community, because as we talked about earlier, coronavirus is just running around looking for people to infect. And so if it keeps running into people who have that armor, that shield, and it can't infect people, then it will begin to die out. So I think ultimately, if we can get the vaccinations, the rates up, get the shots in people's arms, those people will be okay. However, I think they need to be concerned about, because we have a ways to go before we get enough people vaccinated and protected from coronavirus infection. So they need to be worried about whether or not, if they care about traveling, if they care about getting sick, if they have family members who might be at risk for dying from COVID. I mean, I think this is a team effort. And so for those people who are adamant they won't get the vaccine, we need you to do your part. I'll just talk to you directly. And we need you to do your part, wearing a mask, staying away from people. The thing we don't talk about enough is if you feel sick, you have to stay away from people, because coronavirus can fool you into thinking it's not a big deal. I'm not that sick. And you go out and you infect someone else. We have to work together. So please wear your mask, social distance, and wash your hands. We keep saying it over and over and over again. I think people are just tired of hearing it by now.
Just bring up
A mask has become a part of my wardrobe. I got it in different colors.
Everybody in their fashion, at the inauguration. Did you see some of those masks? They were so fancy.
You can go on Etsy. There's an Etsy site where they take old like Gucci scarves and they're making masks out of them. They're getting real creative with the masks.
My concern about the cloth masks, though, is that people need to make sure they're cleaning those masks and washing them. My favorite mask to wear is just the plain old surgical mask. It's easy to breathe through it. You don't get as hot and sweaty with that mask. And I know, though, anything that deters people from wearing the mask consistently I want to get rid of that. So if it's hard for you to wear those cloth masks all day long, if you need to be around people, try to get a surgical mask so that it's at least a little more comfortable and you're less likely to pull it down away from your nose.
Dr. Lenore or Dr. Fitzpatrick, do you know how many people have been vaccinated to this point?
I think I want to say 40 million.
Oh, is it that high? I can't speak on that because I haven't looked today to see what the number is.
But I wonder whether there's
I don't know if it's that high though.
40 million doses out there. But that's the number that I remember, but I'm not sure. But I want to ask one further question. Big controversy about schools now. I mean, there are it's a big, certainly rage in many of the cities about children going back to school. There are parents finally realizing all the things that teachers were doing, mostly watching your children. So consequently,
feeding them, yes.
All these consumer groups that are saying, well, look at the studies on school children, they're not so bad. But then you got the teachers saying, hey, you ain't there, you're not going to be there. And
right.
We need to be more careful. What are you, when looking at the data, what are you saying to people about schools?
Yeah, I don't give a professional opinion about this anymore. I'm just going to give you my personal experience and opinion about this because, and it's not a popular one. It never was. Even from the beginning, I was one of those early people who, was sort of seen as a heretic because I didn't want the lockdowns. And the only reason is because of the populations I work with. I work with people who are already isolated, already disenfranchised, lots of background, high background rates of mental health disorders like depression. And the first people I thought about were, those folks, what's going to happen to them? And so, there are some social structures that are there that support people, and all of that disappeared overnight. And so I think we're starting to see some of the impact of losing these social supports, throughout our communities. And so that's my biggest concern. I think school is an incredibly important place for kids to be socialized. Even the kids in my life, they really they'll do whatever they want. They'll wear the mask and they have fun with it. And look at my mask. They want to be around their friends. And I think that's really important. And we have to figure out a way to make this work because the kids from underserved communities, their parents are struggling. And who's gonna lose out? Basically, a year of education has been lost for a lot of our underserved Black and Brown kids who weren't able to effectively learn at home. So I think there has to be some balance. It's a hard situation. I know there are people who
why not move teachers?
Disagree with me.
Why not move teachers? No, I don't disagree.
No, not you. I know people who don't think we should be in schools until this is completely over. And I fear what might happen.
I got some friends of mine who disagree with everything I say. But I do think this. Why not move teachers up to first responders? Why not get them vaccinated first? I think
essential workers. I've already said essential workers need to be at the front of the line too.
I'm going to address one thing with Marilyn. She's saying it's a whole lot of answers coming out, not sure, numbers not so bad, they're negative tones, which is what makes people a suspect. The hardest thing about this whole process is there's nothing that's definitive. We want, and we like definitive answers. We like a hard yes, a hard no. We want a formula to be able to get through this. This is something that's relatively new. The last pandemic was in 1918. So we're dealing with something relatively new. And so we're learning and we're getting new information every single day. Like, Dr. Fitzpatrick could tell you, she shot a video for me talking about the mutations. And 5 days later, she had to snatch it back and said, I can't see that video because we got new information. And so I got to shoot another one. That's how quickly things are changing. And so I know it's frustrating. I know it's every day I have to get up and read articles about what's happened, what's transpired, what's going on. And it's exhausting, but that's why you come to Black Doctor. That's why you go to Grapevine Health. That's why you go to the African American Wellness Project with Dr. Michael Lenore, because that's what we're doing. We're aggregating that information for you. Dr. Fitzpatrick just wrote an article for Forbes magazine. It's probably obsolete now because it's been a couple of days, but she just wrote an article for Forbes magazine. But that's why we're here. That's why we show on Tuesdays, and that's why we're here to get you the information as up to date as possible.
And we're very fortunate, Dr. Fitzpatrick, that you took the time to join us.
Yes.
I mean, I wonder what we were going to do this whole hour. But that's
we can keep talking another hour. There's always stuff to talk about.
The questions are still covered. They're still covered.
Well, let's get some more questions in. That's online.
Well, I didn't say I wanted to talk another hour. I just said we could. But yes, let's take a couple.
Regarding with kids, when will kids be vaccinated? So in terms of the vaccines, the youngest that participated in the clinical trials was 16. I believe that was in the Pfizer trial, if I'm not mixing it up, 18 in the Moderna trial. So we're trying to kind of get some stabilization on the people that are being vaccinated now. And then there will be some trials with kids coming up. The beautiful thing is that kids don't translate. What we're finding is that the kids aren't translating the virus to each other as quickly, as easily as it is between adults. So that's the good news. But they've been real cautious about putting kids in clinical trials.
Some of those trials have already started. They've already started some trials on children. So that's going to be a very important piece.
Yes. And they should say pregnant women should consult their doctor. So if you're pregnant, you should consult your doctor. But pregnant women have been advised that they can take the flu vaccine. So I don't see any reason why you shouldn't. But again, you need to consult with your OB before if you're thinking about getting the vaccine while pregnant.
There were women who became pregnant in the trial. So I think the evidence is probably going to lean toward okay.
Dr. Fitzpatrick, Corona doesn't stop. So
can't stop, won't stop.
We do want to thank
you. It will stop when we get enough people either vaccinated or with COVID, right? So,
but we want to thank you for taking the time to join us on this edition of Black Doctors Speak. Certainly a lot of great information, and I hope people will take advantage of the knowledge that you've given them. I think the central point is that the people are trying to talk us into negativity. And so having an opportunity to hear your experience and have you talk with us is a very special privilege. So thank you so much. I thank you, Mr. Dean, for putting this all together and doing the piece. I'd like to thank all of those of you taking the time to listen to us on this edition of Black Doctors Speak. Remember, health is your biggest asset, so protect it.